The Calisto protocol is way better than the mainstream outlets lead you to believe. In my personal opinion, the Calisto protocol may even be a Game of the Year contender. But let's explain why most of the mainstream outlets like IGN and GameSpot lead you to believe that this game is just mediocre or average at best. Let's do this.
Hope. I feel it slipping away. The fear grips me. But I've got to escape. Every sound, every movement is closing in. This dead moon. It's not done with me yet. Just one thing to do. Survive.
Now, what is the Calisto protocol? Well, let me tell you. The Calisto protocol is a survival horror game made by Dead Space alumni Glenn Schofield. Also, the game director for those games, who has recently started his own studio known as Striking Distance Studios. And the game is also published by Krafton. Now, if Krafton sounds familiar, that's because they're the developer that publishes PUBG, which everyone on the planet loves. Not an exaggeration in the slightest, everyone everywhere has always loved PUBG and nothing has ever been wrong with the game. Clearly, obviously, no questions about that. The Calisto protocol takes place on what is considered the dead moon. Calisto, one of Jupiter's moons. Now, Black Iron Prison isn't just your average American prison, okay? We're talking about a fucking space prison, okay? People are dying everywhere, people's heads are getting blown off, you're seeing mutants running around, crawling over the place, getting all in your Cheez-Its. How could anyone hate this game? I mean, with the description I just gave you, that sounds like the best game ever made. I mean, honestly, Space Prison is the greatest game ever made. But all joking aside, the thing that makes the Calisto protocol what it is, atmosphere. A lot of survival horror games have atmosphere, don't get me wrong. In fact, some of the greatest of all time have atmosphere in spades. Silent Hill 2, with the notorious fog surrounding you, not knowing where you're going to go next. How about Resident Evil 2 with the police station, where every turn you make might be your last? There are many iconic survival horror locations, but to me, Calisto might be the next on the list of the pantheon of great survival horror locations. The Calisto protocol does something that I truly love in survival horror games, that being the inevitable, the deaths. The crazy, insane, choreographed horror deaths. We're talking jaws getting ripped open, we're talking people getting chopped up in a grinder, we're talking all the crazy shit you know in horror, right? But here's the thing, the Calisto protocol is scary. It is a truly scary survival horror game. When you play it, you feel this intensity that I've not felt in a survival horror game in a long time, because the camera is pulled up so close, similar to the Dead Space games. And since there's a very minimal UI and HUD, you get more immersed in the scenario, also similar to the Dead Space games. I think even though Dead Space 1, 2, and 3, well, less so 3, but 1, 2 are great games in the pantheon of horror games is because of how they scared the player with its corridors. When you go down a corridor in the Dead Space games, you know you can't escape. You know you're stuck in there, having to fight off an alien menace. And the Calisto protocol does the same thing. But I feel like the corridors in this game are even tighter, which creates this even narrower playing field where you feel like you're the next one to die. You're the next one to fail and not escape Black Iron Prison. You're gonna be the last person to ever die in this forsaken prison. Now here's the question. Why is the Calisto protocol getting the reception it is? 7, 6, pretty average scores. They're not terrible. In the regards to video game scoring, nowadays a 7 sadly is more like a 5 to gaming audiences, which it really shouldn't be, but that's what it signals. The reasons they're criticizing it, one is combat, one is the linearity. Let's tackle each one of those. Combat. One of the main criticisms of this game is that there's not a lot of variety in the combat. A lot of the combat deals with close range fights. There's a lot of movement and animation, but there's not a lot of depth. I can actually agree with this point in regards to that. I can also counter that argument by saying, I think it works perfectly fine for this kind of game. I think the amount of graphic violence in this game outweighs the potential need for a more deep combat system. I don't think this game needed a Resident Evil 4 type combat system for it to be scary. I think it needed its atmosphere and graphic violence to be scary. Now the second complaint, let's tackle that. It's linearity. I actually prefer linear games, fun fact. I play a lot more linear games than I do open world, or even open map type games, where similar to a Resident Evil 2 or 3, where you're trying to unlock puzzles to get to the next area. I actually prefer games that are more direct and to the point. So in my eyes, actually, that's why I like Calisto Protocol the most. Compared to other horror games that are more focused on puzzle solving or quick reaction times, This game focuses more on the combat and its quick reaction time specifically to create a more intense feeling with its combat. I really prefer that with my horror game. So honestly, that's actually kind of a win for me. The Callisto Protocol, to me, is a great game. It's nothing spectacular, it's nothing groundbreaking, but in a year that has been so dry with releases, something that feels different, at least something different in an atmosphere where almost every game this year has been an open world game or a shooter, feels great. It feels great that at the end of this year we have a title that actually challenges the audience. In a year where most games haven't challenged audiences besides Elden Ring and God of War, which, don't get me wrong, they've challenged audiences. But there hasn't been a lot of titles besides those two that have really pushed boundaries this year. Every year in the past few years, I've seen at least 4 or 5 titles that really pushed the gaming boundaries or the landscape in general. This year, we haven't really seen that. And for a game to do this and do it so boldly, I have to commend Crafton and Striking Distance Studios for making a game like this. Thank you all for watching my video. Please subscribe today. I need an audience. I need to get monetized. Goodbye. In all seriousness, thank you all for watching my videos. It means the world to me. I put a lot of time and effort into this stuff, and if you guys want to subscribe or like, that's up to you. But it means the world, and it makes me able to continue doing what I love. Gamers, rise up.